The dry winds of the Texas plains swept across the lonely ranch where Samuel Carter had spent most of his life in solitude, a man hardened by the dust, the silence, and the ghosts of his past. Years ago, tragedy had torn his family apart when bandits raided their wagon on a journey westward, and in the chaos, his younger sister Clara had vanished. The boy Samuel had been back then had searched, prayed, and shouted her name across endless miles of land, but all he ever found was silence, and eventually he grew into a man convinced she was gone forever. Now, at 30, Samuel was a rancher whose only companions were cattle, horses, and the occasional letter he sent to distant trading posts. But loneliness gnawed at him like a wolf at the door. And when he heard of a strange auction in town where young women, desperate for food, were being sold as brides for mere dollars, his heart warred between disgust and desperation. He told himself he would never stoop so low, yet when he saw a pale, thin girl standing on the wooden platform, her eyes downcast, her hair tangled, but holding the faintest shimmer of gold, like the dawn he used to know, something inside him broke. The bidding started at $1, and Samuel's voice, rough and uncertain, rose above the crowd. $2. The hammer fell, and with it Samuel's life shifted forever. As the girl was handed over to him, trembling and silent, he lifted her chin gently, only to freeze in place. Those eyes, though worn by hardship, carried a spark he knew too well, a memory buried in time. "Clara?" he whispered, his throat tightening as if choking on the years. The girl gasped softly, her lips trembling, and though she said nothing, the shock in her gaze mirrored his own. He led her to his wagon, his mind a storm of disbelief. Could it be her, or was loneliness weaving cruel tricks on his heart? That night, beneath the star-scattered sky, Samuel dared not sleep. He sat across from her by the campfire, watching her every move, waiting for a word, a sign, an answer to the question burning his soul. Had he just brought back the sister he thought he lost forever? Morning sunlight spilled across the ranch as Samuel guided Clara into the wooden house that had stood as his only fortress against the world. He gave her food, warmth, and space, though the silence between them hung heavy. At first she spoke little, her voice hoarse from years of neglect, yet slowly. Fragments of her story emerged, like fragile shoots after a storm. She told of the day their family had been torn apart, of how strangers had dragged her away from the burning wagons, how she had been passed from cruel hands to harsher ones until she found herself abandoned in a town where poverty forced her onto that auction block. As she spoke, Samuel felt both grief and fury boil within him, yet above all, he felt an overwhelming gratitude that fate had brought her back into his life. He promised her she was safe now, that the ranch was her home, and that no man would ever harm her again. Still, the town whispered, they saw only a rancher who had bought a bride for $2, and rumors spread like wildfire. Samuel stood tall against their judgment, but Clara's heart ached at the stairs. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Clara turned to him and whispered, "Do you ever wonder why God let us find each other again?" Samuel looked at her, his weathered face softening as he said, "Because he knew I couldn't live this life alone." Tears welled in her eyes, and for the first time since childhood, Clara smiled with a glimmer of hope. But their story was far from over, for the men who had once profited from Clara's misery were still out there. And when word reached them that she had been taken in by a rancher, they vowed to reclaim what they saw as theirs. Samuel knew that keeping his sister safe would require more than a rancher's strength. It would demand courage, sacrifice, and the will to fight for family against the darkest shadows of the past. As the night fell once more and the prairie winds howled, Samuel held his rifle close, vowing that he would never lose her again, no matter the cost.